Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Martians and aliens. We're not speciesists on this channel. Everybody's welcome. My name is Alan, and welcome to Mars, the Second Genesis. Well, guys, firstly, I'd like to apologise that I've not had any videos on the channel for some time. I think it's been about 6 weeks. I have not been resting on my laurels. I have been busy designing a new process specifically designed to enhance the Curiosity rover Navcam images. Now, for those of you who have been following the channel for some time, will know that I designed a process called M.E.T.A.D.E.X to enhance the Perseverance rover Mastcam images, and it was very successful because it brought out a lot of details that you just couldn't see normally. M.E.T.A.D.E.X stands for Mars Obfuscation, Recovery and Dynamic Expansion. The new process is called M.E.T.A.D.E.X, and that stands for Mars Extreme Tonal Adjustment and Dynamic Expansion. The results, when you see this, you will be gobsmacked. You're going to see structures and things in these Navcam images that until now has not been visible. And when you see these structures, you'll be under no illusion that they are intelligently made structures. And again, once you see it, you will realise that it was certainly worth the wait. The image you see here was captured on Sol 1431, and this is the left Navcam. We've also got a right Navcam, so we will be able to view the individual parts of this image in Stereo Photo Maker in X3D. Okay guys, this is the image we are going to be looking at today. This is a direct conversion from the image I got from Analyst Notebook, and it was converted from the raw ISO file, and this is how it comes. I've not increased any resolution or size or anything, so I'll let you see how garbage these files actually are. As you see, this looks just like rock and such like, and that's what NASA wants you to believe. So let's take a wee look at the M.E.T.A.D.E.X version, and as you can see, it looks a bit different. There is more dynamic range, which is the difference between the dark and light tones, and you can see more. Now let's zoom into this rock here, or so-called rock, and you can see a lot more detail than you've seen before. And you can see, by looking at this is not a rock. In fact, the individuals at NASA say that all this white rock-looking stuff is actually a clay layer. So we will take a look at this together and you will clearly see it's not a clay layer. So here we have the full image in all its X3D glory. We have a structure here, we've got structures at the back, and we've got structures up here as well. We've got structures here too. All this at the front is not bedrock, it is not the clay layer that NASA claim. And you will see this in a wee moment. I'll just zoom in here. And as we can see, this area here, we have some sort of maybe vents or windows, but we can see This is structural, and so is the stuff at the bottom. And as we move to the right, just behind that, we can clearly see non-fractal geometry, and we can see this here is a structure, and the bottom piece there is also part of the structure, and we can see that's like a wee roadway going in there, and it steps down and comes along here, and we can see, and this is a structure as well, and we have some sort of ramp here. And again, it speaks for itself. These are structures. These are not buttes. These are not hills. These are actual structures right along here. And this part here as well. Let's look at the front here, and we can clearly see these are structures too. They're not rocks. You can see they're mechanical. We've got non-fractal geometry here. That looks like some steps there. I don't know what this is, but it looks pretty cool. And again, we can see we've got non-fractal geometry, which is a clear indication of intelligently made structures. And look at this piece here as well. Now, what I'm going to do is show you the exact same image, only this time it is darker. I'll zoom in and we can view it. Now you can see the bottom structures a lot clearer in the darker version. This looks like some kind of windows or maybe vents, and if we look at this, there is no illusion what you're looking at here, guys. And NASA's trying to tell us that this is just buttes and hills and bedrock and a clay layer. Does that look to you like a clay layer, guys? Because it certainly doesn't to me. I mean, look at all this at the front. I mean, you can see the various bits of the structure. Look at this piece here. And it comes up and comes up onto that there. And you can see in the shadows of how they've mapped sand to that. You can clearly see there's something below that. Now, here's a question for you. Do you honestly think that's sand? Now think about the angle of that. I know Mars has got less gravity, but come on. That's why the pyramids were never buried in sand. It's because of the angle of them. The sand didn't stick, and it's the same here. I mean, that must be maybe about 50 degrees. No way sand would stick to that. So you've got to ask yourself, who are they trying to fool with all this? I'll give you a pan through the bottom as well. You can look at the bottom bit. designing this process to show this wasn't an easy task. That's why it took so long. I'd also like to point something out here. Take a look at just above these structures here. You see all this garbage in the sky? That's an overlay they've put over the image to obfuscate. But if you look just above these structures, you can clearly tell that these structures don't end there. They end further up. Now, how far up? I think that's the actual line there. So as we go across, we can see there's more to the structure. So they've cut that off and overlaid a kind of sky. But you can clearly see, especially there, you can see that there's a lot more to this. We're only seeing a small part of it. You're probably wondering why I think the structure ends further up. Because after all, NASA makes that look as if that's way in the distance. But it's not. Now, I've been doing photography for 46 years. One of the things about photography is you learn to read light and shadows. Because light and shadows are the thing that makes an image. That's what gives the image depth. Now, if you look at this image here, you can see that the light is hitting the top of these structures here. But if we look at the back here, there's no light hitting that. It's dark. There's a part here that the light's hitting, and over here. But there's nothing hitting here. Why is that? Well, if the structure is further up and this part here above it is the roof, it will be overhanging like a stadium. And I believe this is a shadow. So that tells me that this structure does not end there and it goes further up, and we can see the line further up. So what we're seeing is this is the shadow below the roof line. So you can see here, this wee part here, the light is hitting it on the top. You've got specular highlights here as it hits off the metal. Here and here. These are specular highlights. So you would think the top of this would be bright as this, and it's not. So this bit here is probably further below the roof line than this. And this is a closer look at the other side. And I'll show you the darker version. Now, I'd like you to pay close attention to the structures here. I mean, this looks like maybe it's steps or the front of a structure. I've got all this up here. I mean, there's structures everywhere, guys. Not one bit of this is a clay layer, bedrock, hills, or buttes. Do not let these buggers at NASA kid you on, because you can clearly see with your own eyes that this is structural. I mean, if you've seen that on Earth, you would know right away what it is. You would know it's structural. So for our next image, we've got this structure up in the hill here. Well, when I say hill, it's not a hill, the whole thing is a structure. And this as well. So I'll just zoom in a wee bit and give you a pan through. Now if you look, you can actually see like the individual rooms. And we've got some sort of square there. And you can see up here. And they have made an attempt to disguise this, but you can see a lot of shapes there. In the darker version, you can actually see what they've tried to hide. And look at the front. I'll zoom in and let you see it. I mean, look at all this. We can see all this here. This is not sand. I'll zoom in a wee bit to the front here and give you a pan through. So let's take a closer look at this. We can see it looks like structural beams. And up here as well. I'll show you a darker version. And you can see some stuff below. They've mapped sand to this to try and disguise it, but you can clearly see it's structural. And the same with up here, and up there, and here. And we've got this here. I'll just pan across. This is just in front of this structure. Now you'll see all this bottom bit a bit clearer in a minute when I show you the darker version. Okay, let's turn our attention to the foreground, and I'd like you to pay attention to these bits. Now NASA calls this bedrock and a clay layer. I don't know about you guys, but that certainly does not look like bedrock or clay layers. In fact, it looks quite deep. Like these things are mechanical. We've got non-fractal geometry all over the place, especially this bit here. That does not look like bedrock. I mean, look at this. Well, let's take a look at the darker version, and you can see it a bit clearer. Look at this here. We've got a couple of holes. This part up here. And this piece, whatever that is, I don't know what it is, but I know it's not a rock and it's not bedrock, and it is certainly not a clay layer. You can see this is something mechanical. This here. And this. I'll let you point out in the sand, look at the forms that they have put like mapped sand to this. But you can clearly see whatever this is, it continues across to this. So these are all the same thing. It's just they've mapped sand to try and break it up to make it look like bedrock or whatever. And you see it down here as well. Here. Here. Now, we'll take a closer look at this. We've got this piece here. Let's take a look at the darker version. You can see that's something mechanical. Just every bit of this. We can see there, whatever that is, it's not a normal run-of-the-mill rock. And we can see that's mechanical in nature, or something sculpted, or part of a building. And this piece at the back here as well. And we'll take a wee look at this. All this here, we have some lines, which I believe NASA's put in the sand. Now, if you look at this line here, going across, there's something they put this sand to try and disguise it. And we've got non-fractal geometry here. All over here as well. So this is the darker version. I'll zoom in and give you a pan through and draw your attention to this piece here. Certainly doesn't look like a rock. It's got two cylindrical pieces. And this piece here. And this almost looks as if it's folded over. And this here, you can see this has got a bit of height to it. And this as well. And here, again, this looks as if it's folded over, like metal. and it's got a small piece here. Now this piece at the top here, it doesn't look like a rock. And you can see here the way that intersects. And this piece here. And look at the side of that. And look at this area here. That's certainly not a rock. And we've got this piece at the front. Look at this piece here. And look the way that arcs round. That's a perfect arc. Yeah, nothing but rocks, guys. Nothing to see here. Okay, I'd like you to take a wee zoom in to this area here, because there's some interesting bits I'd like to draw your attention to. Okay, the main focus here is this part here. That is a cylindrical tube. And we can see it's got a wee slit out of it. But we can see inside. And we've got a wee arc piece here. And we've got kind of quarter circle there. Looks like that's a hole there. And look at the way these bits are shaped. And a bit of the back there. And this piece here, just look at the side of that. And this part. And that's not rock, that's metal. Or the Martian equivalent to metal. It could be plastic, whatever. But this is not rock. Now, when you look closely at all this, you can clearly see this is not rock. That's maybe bolts or rivets. And you've got to actually look very closely at this. See here, and we've got this. There's a lot of the stuff being ghosted out, but you can clearly see, like here, there's too much non-fractal geometry here. And we've got this bit that looks sort of mechanical. And this here. And we've got this. And if you look very closely, you can see all the non-fractal geometry. And we can see it could be mechanical, it could be the roof of a structure, it could be sculptures, I don't know. But one thing I do know, NASA are talking rubbish, because this is not a clay layer. You can clearly see that. I mean, look at that piece there. I mean, honestly, does that look like a clay layer to you? I mean, it's just, it's not what they say it is. You can zoom in and you can actually see these details. But what you've got to remember is I've left the texture in the sky so you can take a mental note of that. And when you're looking at the image, when you see a texture like that, see it's all over here, you know that that's the overlay. You see all the garbage that's in the sand, all this texture, that's what they've put in. Now, I've filtered out a lot of it, but there's still a lot left, and to filter out any more, it would blur it too much. So, but as long as you keep a mental note of what it looks like, you can sort of filter it out in your mind. Now here's another piece I'll give you a pan through. I mean, look at this bit at the front. It looks something sculpted. And this here. And that. I mean, what can I say? I mean, these are not, this is not a clay layer, it's not a pattern left by a clay layer. You can clearly see there is forms in this that are non-fractal, straight lines, right angles, and all this sort of carving. Some of it could be hieroglyphs, we don't know, but it's definitely not what they say it is. There's this one here, and I'll just give you a pan through. Look at this. I mean, look at all this here, this area here. I mean, honestly, who are they trying to kid? We've got a line there and we've got a line intersecting it. And that's a right angle. You don't get that in nature. And all this junk here, and we've got these bits. Got a hole there. And all this. Okay guys, so we're going to take a look at this large area, and just looking at that you can clearly see this is not rock, I believe it's metallic. So I'll give you a pan through and then we'll kind of zoom in certain areas. This piece here, this pointy bit, I've got a couple of bits sticking up there. I'll get these bits. When you study it closely, you can see this is some sort of mechanical stuff or sculpting. I mean, look at this at the front. I'll zoom in, because you can zoom in quite a bit at the front. And look at all this non-fractal geometry. Look at that there. I mean, I've no idea what it is, but it is not what NASA say. I mean, how can that be clay? Clay doesn't do that. I mean, I've sculpted with clay. I know what clay looks like, and that is not clay. Clay doesn't form non-fractal geometry by itself. I mean, it almost looks like hieroglyphs and sculpting. Some of it could be mechanical. And this here, you can clearly see that's a nut or a bolt. I mean, it's absolutely some real crazy stuff here. Once you study it, like that bit up there, you can see that could be a pipe, could be a junction of a pipe, could be anything. This bit here, and you see this a lot in these, we'll call it a clay layer, but in here you see a lot of this black stuff. That to me looks like shredded metal sticking up that they've just blacked out. Pretty cool stuff, guys, eh?